Hey, what's up? Lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss book 3 in the Heroes of Olympus book series, The Mark of Athena. This is written by Rick Riordan. Um, Came out in 2013. This is a thick book. This is over 570 something pages long. Honestly, I would have preferred personally if the first 2/3 of the book was one book and the other third was its own book, because it was long, but like it's important that it's long. Okay, so like this book starts out in New Rome, right? The Argo 2 with the demigods from Camp Half Blood are coming to New Rome to kind of like get the prophecy of the seven together, but then to convince Reina and Octavian that the Greeks and Romans are supposed to work together to defeat the giants. So while they're there and mingling, all of a sudden the Argo 2 starts firing ballistas at New Rome, and we find Leo firing ballistas at New Rome. So then, as the story progresses and they escape, obviously there's going to be giant Roman eagles chasing them because the Romans want, revenge. They go to Salt Lake, the giant Salt Lake in Utah, where they have to get repairs done on the Argo 2. So like they need tar and they need celestial bronze. So then the campers split. New Romans and the Camp Half-Blood kids, they all split to get some stuff. So while Leo and Hazel are going to get the celestial bronze, they meet the goddess Nemesis, who gives Leo a fortune cookie. They meet Narcissus. I think who is it? Percy and Frank. They get the tar, and Jason and Piper get something else. Like everybody gets their own stuff, and they come back. Piper is also seeing visions in her dagger, Catoptris, the looking glass or whatever her weapon is called. It's a dagger. It's this big. That they have to go to Topeka, Kansas for some reason. So they go to Topeka, Kansas, where they meet Bacchus. So Percy, Jason, and Piper meet Bacchus, who's the Roman form of Dionysus, and for some reason they need his help because the two giants that were made to defeat him are the ones who have Nico D'Angelo trapped in a bronze vase in Rome. But in the process of this, Percy and Jason start to fight each other, and then it turns out that Eidolons, who are like possessing spirits, are the ones who possessed Leo originally to fire on New Rome. And then they possess Jason and Percy to fight each other as like a sacrifice to Gaia, who's still waking up. And now we know that she's waking up in a month. So this is starting before the Cleans of something, the Cleans of Hera. I forget what it is. Whatever the Roman expression for July 1st is, which we find out is Jason's birthday, and he himself is turning 16. So Percy's about a year older than Jason, according to these books. So the Eidolons are banished, that they can't possess anyone on the ship anymore thanks to Piper's charm speaking. The kids then go to... Did they go to Omaha? I don't even remember. They go so many places in the first beginning of this book. They eventually then wind up going to Atlanta to meet a old sea god at one of the aquariums who is trying to, trap Percy. And then they go to South Carolina. Where in South Carolina? Charleston, South Carolina they go for something else, to talk to somebody else. And then there was a fort, I forget the name of the fort, but it was like a Civil War fort in South Carolina where there's still a submarine, like the first ever used submarine, something like that. And they think that there's Imperial gold on the submarine, but there's not. So then at this point, that's when they're fighting against the Romans, the New Romans, who meet them in South Carolina, basically. And Reina says, we are going to march on, Camp Half-Blood. We can't trust you. And Annabeth's explaining, it was the Eidolons that did the possessing, but Reina's still in I want to believe you, but I can't based off of what we saw, and we're marching. So she kind of like agrees with Annabeth that Reina will try to slow down as best as possible, but the last thing we see of them is that they are camped out in New York City awaiting to march on Camp Half-Blood on Long Island. So while this is happening, the kids then get to... The kids... They're in their teens, then get to Rome. And then that's when the last third of the book happens, and that's when the last crazy chaos stuff of the book happens. So in the process of getting to Rome, though, we're going through the Mare Nostrum, which is what the Romans called the Mediterranean Sea. But then there's the Pillars of Someone, which is between Morocco and Spain, the little strait between Morocco and Spain, which is what Hercules is fighting. So then Piper and Jason are fighting Aeolus to get his other horn to appease Hercules to let them pass, but then they trick everybody, and then like Piper's got a new weapon, another cornucopia, which is a pretty awesome, badass thing. And then they eventually get boarded by a pirate who happens to be the son of Poseidon and Medusa, Chrysaor, Chryssaor, Chrysaor. I'm thinking it's Chrysaor because Saor would be soar, and Cry, I'm basing it off of the Chrysler building, so Chry, Cry, and then Soar, Chrysaor, who's a son of Poseidon and Medusa, whose twin brother is Pegasus, of all things. So we get into his background, kind of, but he's not really in mythology, so he gets to be a pirate in this book, and he is taking all their weaponry and stuff, and then eventually, like, they not make amends, but like part ways, and then the kids then eventually do get to Rome. But he's a really cool captain, if you will. He's Captain Chrysaor. He's a really cool. He's got green snakes in his hair. Like, I would love to see him as a costume. I might be him for Halloween because no one really talks about him. He doesn't have many stories. You know, he did marry and he had a son. But, like, again, no one really talks about him for some reason. Everybody talks about Pegasus, but no one really talks about Chrysaor. Don't know why. I think I'll start talking about him. So, when the kids are in Rome, that's when 3 different stories are happening in this 3rd book of Heroes of Olympus. Annabeth is on her own adventure, following the mark of Athena, to find the Athena Parthenos, which is a gigantic statue that Rome actually took out of the Parthenon in Athens, as a, we're better than you kind of a thing. And then Greeks and Romans have been fighting ever since because of that. That's the reason. So Annabeth has to follow the mark of Athena, which leads her to Arachne, who has a grudge against Athena. And then they have to get... Annabeth has to trick Arachne into making this giant cylinder, kind of like a Chinese finger trap, that she calls it a spider trap. Thanks to Frank Zhang, who got a Chinese finger trap at a gift shop at the Atlanta Marine Aquarium, whatever, and didn't understand A, why it was called Chinese, and B, how to like get the tension out, right? You like pinch the fingers and like release kind of thing. So she used Frank's question against Arachne, but like was questioning, did my mom actually cheat? Is my mom actually the best weaver, or is Arachne the best weaver? Things like that. Jason, Piper, and Percy are trapped in a Nereid-filled well that was dried up, and they had to use the cornucopia to put fresh water in the poisonous water to save everyone and then themselves. That was pretty cool. Frank, Leo, and Hazel were trapped underground, and they were going across... I forget the guy's name. He was like the Atlas, but he's not like the Atlas. It starts with an A. Archimedes, right? Archimedes, and his tech stuff. He's a son of Hephaestus. So they were fighting automatons of that nature in the process of still trying to save Nico. Nico is eventually saved. The giants are then eventually fought by Percy and Jason, who are teaming up now instead of fighting each other because they're the Eidolons. But the kids eventually sunk Chrysaor's ship with the $6 million worth of gold and all these things as a tribute to Bacchus, to try to get him to help them fight the giants, because you can't kill a giant unless you have a god teaming up with a demigod. So Bacchus kind of agreed to it in the sense of refilling the Roman Colosseum with a whole stage, thousands of purple lair Roman ghosts that they are cheering. And Jason and Percy had to prove that they were worth Bacchus helping. And then Jason and Percy basically destroyed the 2 giants who were keeping Nico captive. And then Nico and Piper were sitting with Bacchus up in the podium or whatever. I had to look away because I'm trying to visualize it as I'm talking about it. So then eventually Bacchus comes down with his, pine cone encrusted spear and just goes plop, plop of the giants. After Jason and Percy did all the work, kills them, everybody gets together, then everybody tries to save Annabeth as she is with the Athena Parthenos after she's defeating Arachne, and then the whole cavern is exploding into Tartarus, and Arachne happens to get a web around Annabeth's broken bubble-wrapped ankle, pulls her down, and Percy and Annabeth fall into Tartarus together. And the only way this makes sense is because Nico has discovered, after being in Tartarus and the which is the lowest level of Hades, of the underworld, that the giants got him out because they put him in a jar, basically. But the doors of death are open. That's why the monsters are not dying. That's why Gaia is waking. The doors of death have to be closed by going through the House of Hades. So the kids have to go on the mortal side to Epirus, on the mortal side in Greece to close that. But they also have to be in Tartarus to close it as well. So someone has to be in Tartarus in the underworld, and someone has to be on the mortal side to close the doors so that way the monsters can't escape. We actually go through this in the brand new movie Scoob, which came out last year. Whole thing about the doors of death and Cerberus, and how one person had to be in the underworld, one person had to be on the outside, and Shaggy sacrifices himself. Like, there's a whole thing in Scoob, and I was so impressed because to have actual logical Greek mythology intertwining with the Scooby-Doo universe, Hanna-Barbera universe, so cool. So it was nice seeing that on screen, because now you have a better visualization when you read the fourth book, House of Hades, which we will keep going into. Oh no, this came out in 2012, this book. House of Hades was 2013, that's what it was. So Percy and Annabeth drop into Tartarus to try to find the doors of death after going through Tartarus, and that's what the whole book of House of Hades is. The kids in the mortal world are doing their thing, the kids in the underworld are doing their thing. So we'll get to that. But that's why this book is very important. It's over 570 pages of reading, plus a large glossary, and awesome cover art. But this is when the story is split, because you have certain characters teaming up to do one adventure and certain characters teaming up to do another adventure. It's not just one linear story anymore. It's a lot of stories are happening at the same time. That's why the last third of this book was important, because it was showing a lot of the three different stories going on in Rome, which leads to book 4, which leads to book 5. So, very different compared to the other Percy Jackson and the Olympians and Heroes of Olympus books that we've had, but important going forward because of the amount of storytelling that is involved in all of this. Awesome, awesome stuff. We are going to start book 4. I don't know how long it is, but I know that Mark of Athena is the longest book. Mark of Athena is the longest book Rick Riordan's written within the Percy Jackson books. And rightfully so, because a lot of information happens. It's just, some parts are slow, but necessarily slow because it gives you more details in regards to what happens next. And that's what's really important about these books. What happens next? What can we do? Here I am spouting all of this information out for, I don't even know how long I've been talking. It's been a while. But that's the thing, like, these books get you thinking, and these books get you to wonder, okay, well, if this is happening here, what's happening there? And if the Greco-Roman gods are now having split personalities and are extremely schizophrenic and don't know what child to claim when and all these things, what's happening in other things? What's happening with those Egyptian gods that we talked about? What's happening with the Norse gods, which we are eventually getting to with the Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard books? It's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff. Right? This emoji, the Zhuzh emoji, we're good. On to book 4, Heroes of Olympus, House of Hades, and thus concludes our conversation on Heroes of Olympus. Mark of Athena. It's a textbook. So much info. We're good to go. Mucho mahalo.